the one thing keeping you stuck is the way you think. Welcome to Change Your Mind with Chris Ashley, the podcast where science meets spirituality and mindset becomes your most powerful tool for transformation. I'm Chris Ashley, author of Change Your Mind to Change Your Reality, trainer, speaker, and lifelong seeker. For years, I battled trauma, depression, anger, chronic illness, low self-worth, and the weight of old stories. Until I discovered how to rewire my mind, reconnect with my divine nature, and consciously create a new reality from the inside out. This show is here to help you do the same. Each week, we explore the intersection of personal development, spirituality, and science, diving into topics like healing, emotional mastery, entrepreneurship, resilience, and the quantum nature of reality. You'll hear powerful stories, gain practical tools, and real conversations that will help you change your perspective, get unshakable confidence, and live the vision your soul has always known is possible. Whether you're navigating a major life shift, building your dream business, or seeking deep healing and alignment, you're in the right place. So if you're ready to break through, take back your power, and create a life on your terms, this is your moment. Let's break free from the patterns that hold us back, awaken to who we truly are, and rise. Your transformation starts now. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Change Your Mind podcast, where we explore personal development, spirituality, and science. I am so excited for my guest today. He's an expert in mediation. So I just feel like all of us could really use this in our lives right now. It feels really timely. So I'm really excited to learn a lot from him today. First, couple of quick announcements. Head over to the links in the show notes. You're going to find a lot there. You're going to find links to my course, which is the Manifest Memoir Method. You'll find a link to my book, Change Your Mind to Change Your Reality. It was endorsed by 3 people from The Secret, Marcy Shimoff, Michael Beckwith, Bob Doyle. It was endorsed by John Gray, Anita Morjani. You will also find links to my other shows. I have 2 television shows, so there's a lot going on there. And of course, you'll find ways to stay connected, and you'll find ways to connect with my amazing guest as well. So definitely go check out the show notes. And then I just wanted to take a moment to dedicate this episode to Bob Frissell. He passed in last June 6, 2026. If you are in the spirituality world, you might know his cult classics. Nothing in this book is true, but it's exactly how things are. Something in this book is true. You're a spiritual being having a human experience and catching the ascension wave. Like, he was a master at titling his books. Bob became a friend. We endorsed each other's books. We spoke on each other's shows. He made a really big difference in a lot of people's lives. So this one's for you, Bob. And let's move on. I'm so excited to have Doug Noll with me today. So Doug is a distinguished fellow of the International Academy of Mediators, the world's most prestigious mediation organization, and recipient of an award of excellence. He was named California Lawyer of the Year in 2012 and Best Lawyers in America Lawyer of the Year in 2013. He was a Purpose Prize Fellow for pioneering the Prison of Peace program, teaching emotional literacy to violent offenders in a maximum security facility for over 10 years. He's an adjunct professor at Pepperdine University's Straus Institute for Dispute Resolution, ranked #1 in the nation. Doug teaches graduate courses on decision-making under stress and conflict resolution. He's also the author of many books and has delivered a TED Talk. So welcome, Doug. I'm so happy you're here.
Thanks, Chris. And everybody who's listening, do Chris a favor, 5-star review right now. You're on Spotify, you're on Apple, doesn't matter what you're listening to. Click that 5-star, give her a 5-star review. That's the only way that she gets out in the world. So please do that right now.
Thank you, Doug. That's very sweet of you. I'm so excited to have you on. Like I said, it just feels like there's so much discontent right now. We're living in this era where there's keyboard warriors and people are just in such disagreement politically, and just like it's all over the place, especially in America right now. So I think if we could all learn to speak to each other a little kinder, then then everything else would kind of follow. So I feel like it's really timely. I'm really happy to have you here. I start all my episodes the same way, and that's by asking my guests what their origin story is. So I'd love to hear your story on how you became a top mediator.
Okay. So I was born in Southern California, unfortunately, with many severe physical disabilities, partially blind, deaf, 2 club feet, bad teeth, left-handed. It was really rough. And I was born in affluence, so that wasn't the problem. But the problem was that my parents, as much as they loved me, did not know how to give me emotional support. They were post-Victorians, keep a step up our lift, slog it out, it doesn't hurt. It was pretty rough. And I was developmentally behind my peers. And so it was not a fun childhood. But I had a good mind. So I got accepted to Dartmouth College out of high school and went back east to Dartmouth, and then came back to California and went to law school. And I was a trial lawyer for 22 years, civil and commercial and business litigation. Tried over 200 cases of all different kinds, jury trials, bench trials, arbitrations, you name it, I did it. In the 1980s, I picked up the martial arts. And in 1990, I was awarded my second degree black belt in a Northern Chinese animal style Kung Fu. And my teacher had a really interesting statement to me. He said, "You need to go study Tai Chi as a martial art." So I did. And Tai Chi has 2 really interesting paradoxes. The first is the softer you are, the stronger you are. And the more vulnerable you are, the more powerful you are. Soft to be strong and vulnerable to be powerful. And I'll stop my story right there and say Tai Chi also did something else. It taught me about Chi and energy. And that led me into becoming a pranic healer, a certified pranic healer. And for a while, an Hatha yoga practitioner under Master Choa Kok Sui. So I did that for a while too. Anyways, back to these paradoxes. I did not get it at first. But I continued to practice and Tai Chi. And eventually one day in the courtroom in the late 1990s, the thought came to me, what the heck am I doing in here? And after that trial, I had a whitewater river trip planned up in Idaho with a bunch of buddies. And so I spent a week thinking about how many people I'd really served as a trial lawyer. And I could only count 5 people in 20 plus years that I'd really served. I said, I just can't do this anymore. But I didn't know what I was going to do. I was a senior partner in a major firm and the second largest revenue generator in the firm, and not try cases. What does that mean? Well, as you know, the universe provides. Came back to town, drove down out of the mountains to my office, and heard what turned out to be the one and only public service announcement directed to me for a new master's degree in peacemaking and conflict studies being offered at Fresno Pacific University. And that got my attention. And to make a very long story short, I enrolled. And so for 3 years, I was, again, a graduate student, a 3/4 time law professor at our local law school, and a full-time trial lawyer.
Wow.
The training I got in that master's degree program was absolutely phenomenal for me. And again, taking a long story and making it very short, I walked away from my law practice and started my own peacemaking practice on November 1st, 2000. Walked away from $10 million. So I started mediating high stakes, high conflict cases, oftentimes non-litigated. So that would be family business conflicts, founder-led companies, conflicts where the human dynamics was getting in the way of business execution, and millions, if not tens of millions of dollars were in one case, billions of dollars were in dispute. But I didn't have a good way to calm people down. And as I talk in my TEDx talk that I gave in April, which is now up on YouTube, I had this insight in a very difficult mediation in 2005. And the insight was, don't listen to the words, listen to the emotions. And I had a phenomenal transformational experience in that mediation with that couple. And then 2 years later, the science caught up, and out of Matthew Lieberman's lab at UCLA came a brain scanning study that showed what happens when you engage in this practice, which is technically called affect labeling, naming what somebody feels. And what the science showed was that when you name somebody's emotions, the centers of the brain associated with negative emotion are calmed down. and the part of the brain is in the prefrontal region associated with emotional self-regulation activates. So you're literally lending your prefrontal cortex to somebody for the 90 or 120 seconds it takes for them to reboot and come back online. And it doesn't matter how angry they are.
Wow.
That led a couple of years later to receiving a phone call from my dear friend and colleague, Laurel Coffer, who read a letter to me that she had received from a woman serving a life sentence without possibility of parole in what was then the most violent, largest, most violent women's prison in the world, in Chowchilla, California, asking if Laurel could come in and train the lifers in the prison how to become peacemakers and mediators to stop prison violence. And Laurel read the letter to me and said, "What do you think?" I said, "I think we should do this."
Yeah.
8 months later, there we were, standing in front of 15 women in that prison, beginning to train them how to become peacemakers and mediators. And the very first skill we taught them, the very first day, was how to listen to emotions. And we had a phenomenal success in that prison, and then it turned into a men's prison. We had phenomenal success there, and today we're active in 15 California prisons, the Connecticut prison system. I think we got 3 prisons in Italy, 15 prisons in Greece, and we're talking to people in Cape Town, South Africa, about starting prison of peace down there. So it turned out to be quite a project. And for 10 years, from 2010 until the pandemic in March of 2020, I was in a prison at least 3 days a week, training long-term and incarcerated people how to stop prison violence using these skills. And that led to my 4th book, De-Escalate, which came out in 2017 and is now in 5 languages. And I'm a Simon & Schuster author. My 5th book is coming out this September, called Empathy Leadership. And it takes the same basic ideas, but shows how when, as a leader, you listen to and name the emotions of people in the room, you regulate their nervous systems, calm them down, and allow them to function at a much higher level than they would otherwise be functioning. So there you go.
That's amazing. What a journey. Thank you so much for sharing that. So when you say like naming it, like, can you just kind of role play an example for me? Like, how would you talk to someone? Yeah.
Chris, you are really pissed off. You're frustrated. You're angry. You feel completely disrespected. Nobody appreciates you. Nobody understands you. You feel invisible and not heard and unsupported. And you're really worried and concerned. And it's really upsetting.
Wow.
And you don't know what you're going to do. And you're really confused.
So, I mean, the person on the receiving end of that must just feel so seen. Like, that's just a relief to feel that seen, right?
Did you feel how you settled as I was naming it? Even though you're
there
not
was also
upset?
like an intensity that you were speaking with where I was like, wow, he's like staring into my soul right now.
That's right. Exactly.
Yeah.
That's exactly right. And that's what happens when you do this. And it literally calms your brain down. Even when you're not upset, your brain calms down. And you can take a raging person and literally, or child, and literally calm them down in 90 to 120 seconds using that technique. You feel. And it works on everybody.
Wow.
Every human brain on the planet is hardwired for this, which is why it's so remarkable that it can work anywhere. It doesn't matter what the culture is.
Yeah. I was going to say, does it work on toddlers? I have a 2.5-year-old.
It does. I can't tell you how many parents have learned these skills and written to me, emailed me, and said, we started doing this with our 2-year-old. And after 4 months, not only did the tantrums go away, but our little boy started affect labeling us. Mommy, you're really upset right now.
Aw.
Really,
I
really
love
cool.
that.
Yeah.
I don't know why this making me tear up. That's really sweet. As you were talking, I was thinking about that book, How to Win Friends, or How to Make Friends and Influence People, right?
Yeah. Dale Carnegie. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, which is just amazing if you're listening and you haven't read it. And I remember reading that, and it was such an aha moment, because I feel like so many times, and I've struggled with this too, like there's this desire to be right in a conflict, right? And I think that that's kind of what is innate in people, rather than end the conflict and just say something that makes peace. You know what I mean? Can you talk to me about that?
Yeah. So a lot of arguments and fights devolve into a fight to be right.
Mm-hmm.
And it's because we're not being heard. And so the only way we feel like we can be heard is that I beat the other person into submission with my arguments and my persuasion. But you can't persuade somebody out of pain, and you can't logic them out of conflict. It's all emotional. And so the only way to calm somebody down is to name their emotions. And then you can have the conversation after that goes about solving the problem. Another problem that we have is that we go to early problem solving. So how many times have you been upset and somebody's come to you and said, look, Chris, if you just do X, Y, and Z, you just
drives me insane.
What? It happens a lot, doesn't it?
Drives me insane, yeah.
It drives you insane. It drives everybody insane.
Yeah.
Because what's happening is the person who's giving that unsolicited advice, they're not trying to be mean or cruel. They're just trying to soothe their own unconscious anxiety that's being provoked by your upset. And since they don't have these skills, they haven't learned these skills, they just revert to the brain thinking, look, if I can get you to stop feeling what you're feeling, I'm going to feel better about myself. So just do what I say and stop feeling, stop emoting.
Yeah.
We do the same thing with our children. How many, when you were a little girl and you're out running around, 2 or 3 years old, 4 years old, you fall down, you skin your knee, it starts to bleed, you start to cry. What were you told?
It's okay.
It's okay. It doesn't hurt. Put on your big girl panties. Don't cry. Yeah. We were told not to feel emotion. And some parents would justify this saying, well, I need to raise a tough kid. It's a tough world out there. And if they're emotional all the time, they're going to survive. This is the most pervasive and insidious form of child abuse that exists. There's a study out of San Diego called the ACEs study, Adverse Childhood Experiences study, that shows that when you emotionally abuse a child, by telling them not to feel, by invalidating their emotions, it's done enough, that child is not going to have a good adult outcome. The ACEs study showed that if a child has 3 ACEs, 3 adverse childhood experiences over childhood, 10 times more likely to die of diabetes, chronic pulmonary disease, obstructive disease, cancer, addiction. There's a direct relationship between how we are raised emotionally and what our later outcomes in life will be. So learning how to validate a child's emotions rather than invalidate them, learning how to validate somebody's upset person's emotions rather than invalidate them or try to persuade them or fight to be right, is kinder, healthier, and it works. It calms people down.
Yeah.
It goes away.
Yeah. Have you noticed that as soon as that happens, the other person, the person that you're talking to kind of does that for the other person? Like, do they start to empathize with the other person's point of view a little bit? I guess is what I'm asking.
Not unless they've had the training and have learned how to do it. But if you're upset and I calm you down, I listen to your emotions and name them, and you calm down, now your prefrontal cortex, you got access to your prefrontal cortex again. Okay. And now we can start having a calm conversation about what it is that got you upset. And we don't have to fight about it. We can actually have a conversation. And if you get escalated again, if you get re-triggered, then I just de-escalate you again. I just name your emotions and calm you down. And we just go through this cycle until we finally get to a solution that we can both live with. Yeah. For couples, because I do work with a lot of couples, and typically it's one person, one side or the other comes to me and says, I need help. And the question is, how do you introduce affect labeling into a relationship? And there are a number of ways that you do it. And you have to be careful, because when you start doing this kind of listening, you're invoking a much deeper level of intimacy than most people have ever experienced. So it takes care, but it can happen, and it almost always results in a much stronger relationship.
Yeah, that's really amazing. So I'm still thinking about like the toddler thing.
Oh, okay.
I'm thinking, so I have a 2.5-year-old and an almost 6-month-old, and 2.5-year-old is like the sweetest kid ever, like super loving, like will come give you a kiss on if you like hurt yourself or something. But all he wants to do is hit and throw things at and kick his baby brother. So in those instances, it's just get down there and be like, I can see you're upset and frustrated, that I'm paying attention to the baby kind of thing.
Yes, but don't ever use an I statement.
Oh, okay.
Because just listen to the difference.
Okay.
I can see that you're really upset and frustrated. Or it seems to me that you're really upset and frustrated. Or what I think you're feeling is that you're really upset and frustrating.
Yeah.
As
That's like,
opposed to, Chris, you are really upset and frustrated. Which one landed better?
yeah, the softer one.
That's right, because
Oh,
it's
yeah.
much easier for our brains to process this. And especially for a youngster like a 2.5-year-old, they don't have the cognitive capacity to deal with the I statement. So
Yeah.
just use a you feel. You feel frustrated and angry. So you get down on the floor. So you're really frustrated right now. You're angry. Your little brother's getting all the attention and you're not. And that really makes you angry and upset. And you want to cry. And you're really unhappy about this. So you're using age appropriate language.
Yeah.
And you just keep labeling and then you stop and watch what happens. And what's going to happen is your toddler's going to say, yeah, that's exactly right. Okay. What do we need to do to fix this? Oh, I don't know. I want some ice cream. Oh,
Yeah. Yeah.
it's gone, right?
Yeah.
And how long did that take?
Yeah.
45 seconds, maybe?
Yeah. Okay. I'm going to try it.
That's all it takes.
Amazing.
If you try to fight the child by telling them not to do what they're doing, they're just going to dig their heels in and get resistant because they're not feeling heard. They're not feeling visible. They're not feeling validated. And so they will do anything they can to feel validated and heard, which means they'll just get more stubborn and resistant. And
Yeah.
soft to be strong, vulnerable to be powerful. Name their emotions.
Yeah. I love that.
And it brings them right back to peace. And what the studies show, you got children at a perfect age, Chris, because what the studies show, if you start with 2.5, 3-year-olds and start consistently affect labeling, by the time they're 8, 9, 10, they're 2 grade levels ahead of their peers. Because the science shows that emotional development along with cognitive development creates the whole brain. When we live in a society that diminishes the importance of emotion, so we thwart emotional development. And we only develop the cognitive side of the brain. We're only developing half the brain. And that's why when you see 40-year-olds that are arguing with each other, they're acting like 6-year-olds.
Yeah.
Because in that moment, they're 6 years old. They just revert back to the highest level of their emotional maturity under stress.
So, okay, so let's bring it back to, and thank you for that. I'm totally going to start practicing this because I've heard that. I've like read about it online and I try to do it a little bit, but I think I'm doing it wrong based on what you just told me. So
you feel.
Yeah.
That's all I have to say.
You feel. Okay. Let's bring it back to adults. So if someone has a difficult person in their life, like what's your advice for beyond like just naming emotions? Like what's your advice for peacekeeping or mediating if someone has that in their life?
Well, in any kind of conflict situation, it's always a 2-step process. The first thing that you need to do is get people calmed down emotionally. And you do that through affect labeling, naming their emotions with a you feel statement. Then I would say 80%, 90% of the time, that solves the problem right there. Once people feel heard, they calm down and the problem goes away because the argument was all about just being heard in the first place. Right. There is a time though, maybe 10, maybe 15% of the time when you have to really solve the problem and come to some agreements. And so that's when you have the conversation. What do we need to do to fix this? Or what do we need to do to make things right? Or how do you think we should solve this problem? How should we prevent this problem from coming up again?
Collaborative is what
you're engaging in a collaborative conversation.
Okay.
And most people will engage in that collaborative conversation constructively. And how detailed you make it, is depends on the circumstance and the context. One of the things that we taught in Prison of Peace is we taught our students how to build a durable agreement. Because in prison, there are no agreements that you don't go to a lawyer when somebody breaches the agreement, the knives and fists come out, right? So how do we build an agreement that everybody wants to perform? And so there's a certain series of techniques you use. And so we taught them how to do that. So you can do that. You can build a durable agreement, or it can just be an informal agreement, whatever it is. And usually that will take care of the problem. In very, very, very rare cases, I mean 1 out of 10,000, you might have somebody who has a more severe personality disorder. such as the maladaptive overt narcissist. Everybody says everybody else is a narcissist, and you hear this term thrown around all the time. Not true. We're all narcissists. If we didn't have narcissism, we couldn't function. It's a reason why we think about ourselves the way that we do. Yeah. The overt maladaptive narcissist is sort of that on double steroids. And they're the kind of person that everything is about them and nothing about you. And they don't have compassion and they can't listen. And, it's a difficult personality. That person can only be controlled by sharp boundaries with sharp consequences. And you've got to be willing to get the boundaries defined. And, the consequences have to be pretty stiff to get a person like that to do it. And that's hard for people when they're not used to that. But that's so rare. I mean, even in prison, I really never ran across an overt maladaptive narcissist. Ran across one guy. Thousands and thousands of prisoners, one guy. And we kicked him out after 2 years. Only person we ever kicked out of the program. Because we just couldn't get him to adhere to our boundaries. So, and that's a person who's got a disorder that needs treatment.
Yeah, I love that you're doing the prison project because it feels like we're not rehabbing anyone. We're just locking them in cages and then setting them back out into the world. And that's dangerous for other people. That's not healthy for them. No one really wins in that situation.
And here in California, I know you live up in the Bay Area. I live down in Central California. We spend more money on our prison system than we spend on our university system.
Really?
And half of the money that
we have so many
half the money that goes to the prisons goes for pensions and lawsuits.
Wow.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
But nobody wants to fix it because nobody wants to be in Sacramento. Nobody wants to be accused of being soft on crime.
Yeah. I mean, I think there's other countries that do have really great statistics, right? That do it a little different. Okay.
Better. But we have to be really careful about comparing the United States to other countries. We are extremely heterogeneous in terms of our social makeup, socioeconomic class and culture and ethnicity. I mean, really broad diversity. I know there are people in Washington, D.C. who want to roll that back and try to turn this into a white Christian nation, which is wrong. But the fact of the matter is we have extraordinary diversity. If you go to Norway or Sweden, where they have spectacular rehabilitation rates, they're all white people. Yeah, they're all culturally almost all the same. It's changing a little bit now.
And it's a much smaller country.
And smaller countries.
Yeah.
So yes, there are countries, especially European countries, that have had a lot of success in working with their offenders. But remember that it's a monoculture, very small country and very small number of people who are offenders. So it's much easier to work with.
Yeah.
You take California and, we've got 50 prisons in California, 50 prisons plus the fire camps. I mean, a huge population, 100,000 people are incarcerated in California.
That's crazy. Wow.
And so you just can't build, it's very difficult to build programs across the state that are going to be effective at rehabilitation. We've had great success. We've had over 100 people serving life sentences go through our program and get certified by us as a peacemaker or mediator, been released on parole, and not one of them has reoffended.
That's amazing. Have they gotten earlier paroles because of it too?
That's an interesting question. The parole board knows about prison of peace, and so if a person coming up on parole hearing has the documentation to show that they've gone through prison of peace, the parole officers, the board of prisons officers that are hearing officers, question them pretty hard to find out whether or not they really have they're walking the talk, because they know the curriculum. They've seen that people who have gone through the program and have really transformed are very different.
Yeah.
So they're looking for that difference. Did prison of peace really transform you like it has so many other people, or are you just, did you just walk through the program?
Just BSing me.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So.
Well, that's cool. Yeah, I'm just thinking about the whole prison thing. I also feel like it's so frustrating because it's like even if one administration makes change, it's like then the next one can undo things, and that, you know what I mean? It just feels like
Well,
everybody does their own thing.
it's a huge bureaucracy. It's got a
Yeah,
lot of moving parts. It's got a
yeah,
lot of tugs and pulls, and
yeah.
you've got the correctional officers, union, the prison guard union,
Mhm.
and pulling in one direction. You've got all kinds of people who are interested in human rights, preventing prison abuse, rightfully so. You've got the department itself, which is caught in all kinds of different directions, being accountable to the legislature and the governor. And it's it's extraordinarily difficult to
Yeah,
manage
yeah.
a system like that, and it's
Hard to get anything
extremely
done.
bureaucratic. So,
Yeah.
um, but it is
And then,
interesting. I mean, there was a study done by the legislature commissioned here in California, commissioned a study on rehabilitation, and it found that for every dollar spent on rehabilitation, the state would save $100 in costs,
wow.
and yet less than 1% of the prison budget is spent on rehabilitation, 1 to
Wow.
2%.
What do okay, what is that 1% spent on besides your project? Like
There
how
are
would they
there are
rehab?
a whole bunch of different kinds of programs that
Okay.
get funded by the state to try to not just rehabilitate, but also bring stuff into prisons that can help incarcerated people kind of regain their humanity. A lot of it's faith based, but there are arts programs, music programs,
Awesome.
stuff like Prison of Peace. There are other programs where people come in and do stuff. So there are a lot of different kinds of programs that the department funds to bring in enrichment into the prisons to try to help people.
That's good.
And some are successful and some are not. It varies. Um,
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
but
it's the work you're doing there is amazing. So I'm
yeah,
glad you're doing it,
it's great work.
and it's
There's
important.
another part of this work. I think I wanted to bring it up because you obviously have a spiritual part of all of this work.
Yeah, please.
Um, when you engage in this listening that I'm talking about, affect labeling, and you really get into it, you go into a transcendent mode where your ego is dissolved and
Mm,
you feel oneness. You feel one with the person that you're listening to, and you feel one with the universe. And I talk about this a little bit in my book, De-Escalate. I don't go into it in great detail because not a lot of people are interested in transcendental experience. But you
yeah.
know how Eckhart Tolle talks about the presence of now. He wrote about that
Mhm.
in his famous book. Of course, he never told us how to do it. He just told us this is what it is.
There's a lot of books like that.
Never gave us a clue on how do you explain something, because I
Yeah.
don't think he knows how to do it. It came to
Right.
him in a moment of deep depression that all of a sudden he had this insight, and he didn't know what he did, and he can't teach it because he doesn't know what he's doing. That's not to say that his work is wrong. It's just that there are a lot of people who have deep spiritual experiences. They don't know what happened, but all they want to do is talk about their experience and what it means and so forth and so on, but they really can't teach
Right.
how to get there. This practice puts you into the presence of now, because when you're listening to somebody and you're listening to their emotions and naming their emotions, you can't be thinking ahead, you can't be thinking behind. You got to be right there with them, and your brain changes when you do that.
I really love that so much. And I can see how really trying to, I mean, put yourself in someone's shoes is like a kind of cheap
Cliche.
way of saying something very deep that you're saying, but I can see how when you're trying to empathize with someone like that, it just would fill you with compassion. And
You automatically get compassion. It develops
yeah,
automatically. So compassion is not something that you do. Compassion is not something that you learn. Compassion is developed with experience. And the way that I describe compassion is you've got a 6.5 month old, still young, not even quite crawling yet. Probably can sit up. Maybe at 6.5 months, maybe not yet. Roll over.
yeah, scooch across the floor. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. All right. So you're holding your baby, and your baby poops, and you smell the poop. You don't take the baby and put it in the dipsy dumpster and say, "Get out of here, you stinky little baby. I don't want you anymore." Baby,
Yeah.
you just pooped.
Yeah.
Let me take care of that. And so you
Yeah.
very lovingly, maybe hopefully, take the baby to the bassinet and clean the baby up, put the baby back in dry diapers, put a bottle on a breast and feed the baby, and the baby is content and happy. The
Yes.
feeling that you have through that whole process is compassion. And so what I teach people is that when you're dealing with somebody who's really angry and upset, they're pooping.
I love that.
And you want to hold, they're emotionally pooping. And all you have to do is hold the same feeling you have for the baby, for the infant. Hold that feeling for this person who's upset. Name their emotions, calm them down. You're basically changing their diapers. And when they're calmed down, then you can sit down and talk about what the upset was all about. And
Yeah, I love that.
that's how you bring compassion to this.
Yeah, I really love that. You're making me think like when I first had my first kid, it totally changed the way I viewed people. It was like, oh, everyone was this once. Everyone was a baby.
That's right.
And like think about how like they're fresh from the universe, right? They're like so worthy of love and just pure. And it's like every single person, all 8 billion people on earth started off this way
Right.
and are this. And everything that you're seeing when they lash out is just kind of like things placed on top of them or their own pain or hurt or but yeah, I don't know, like really changed the way I view people.
Yeah.
Um, I
And
think I still probably get frustrated with people sometimes, but
well, as you learn these skills, you become less and less frustrated
yeah,
because you begin to recognize that there's no such thing as rationality. Everything that we do is emotional. Every decision we make, every behavior we engage in is emotional. And when you see people acting if they're normal or even if they're dysregulated, they're just being emotional. They're being normal. That's a normal human thing. And our culture says that being emotional is wrong, it's evil, it's sinful, it's
mm,
irrational, it's bad. Not true. Being emotional is being human. It's what it means to be human. There is no such thing as rationality. Never has been. That was a myth created by the Greek philosophers 3,000 years ago, and it's permeated our society.
So can I ask you how has putting this into practice changed the way that you view people? Because in some way, I'm trying to figure out like the right way to say it. Like you almost have this like switch where you figured out how to like calm people down, right? And it's almost like you're kind of talking to them like I would talk to my toddler. Like I don't know, like how do you view people after like figuring this out?
Um,
How are your
I'm a lot
relationships?
more tolerant
Okay.
and patient,
Yeah.
and especially in my professional work, I'm much
Yeah.
more effective because I can get to the heart of the matter much faster because I can calm people down and make them feel validated and heard, as you noticed at the top of the show when you said, wow, you just looked into my soul and I feel deeply validated. And that's exactly how people feel every single time. And so it allows for people to be seen almost for the first time in their lives.
Yeah.
And as you give this gift, which costs you nothing to give and only
Right.
takes 30, 40, 50 seconds,
Yeah.
you get and you do this over and over again and keep getting the same results, you begin to soften and you begin to look around all the conflict and all the polarization. You say, this is just completely unnecessary. And we had more people doing this, it would be, we'd live in a completely different world. The way I describe it is like this. So, this is a metaphor I made up during the pandemic when I was teaching people this stuff. And I would say, all right, um, imagine walking past the pond of peace. Every time you listen to somebody throw a pebble in the pond, pretty soon we got 2 or 3 or 4 people throwing pebbles in the pond. We're getting some ripples.
Mm.
And we get 1,000 people walking by the pond and we're getting some waves. We get 1,000,000 people walking past that pond throwing in pebbles and we have a tsunami of peace, one pebble at a time.
I love that. That's really beautiful.
Now, I've watched 10 men on a 1,000-man prison yard, maximum security prison, change the culture of that yard in less than a year with these skills.
That's amazing.
Where arguments used to be dealt with knives and fists, now they're done with naming emotions.
That gives me chills. That's really powerful.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
And that's what my work is devoted to, helping people do this. And it's not difficult to learn. It is counterintuitive and counternormative and takes practice, but it's not difficult. You got to
Yeah.
overcome your own fears more than anything else.
Yeah. It's like a lot of things. It's simple, but maybe not easy at first.
Yeah, it is simple and easy, but we have to overcome all this baggage we have, cultural baggage
Yeah.
we have
The
around
ego.
emotions, ego, and being vulnerable, soft and vulnerable, right?
Yeah.
Being authentic, and that can be a little discomforting if we've had walls around us for our entire lives, and to drop those walls and recognize that you are actually more powerful, you are stronger without the walls than you are with the walls, and that when the walls come down, you live a whole beautiful authentic life that allows you to connect in ways that you've never been able to connect with before.
Yeah.
So it's pretty cool stuff.
Yeah, it is. Is there any advice for just the first time you meet someone, or when you're just starting a relationship or a conversation with someone, just to, I don't know, to help things get off on the right foot and to really see from that person's perspective?
Yes. Whenever we meet somebody new, it's all about me, right? I want to tell you all about who I am, and because what do I want? I want you to validate and accept me. That's what I'm looking for. But what if instead you start talking to me? Hi, I'm Chris Ashley, and this is what I do. Podcaster, media person, influencer. And I say, Chris, that sounds really exciting. Tell me more about what that's doing. You look really happy when you talk about this. What do you want to do?
I mean, I definitely feel seen for sure,
Right.
and I feel like
And you want
valued.
to start talking some more about this stuff. Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
of course, yeah.
So tell me more about your work.
Yeah.
And then you'll say something. Just give me something.
Yeah, I'm creating a docu-series right now too.
Wow, you're creating a docu-series, and that's really you. I can just see you light up when you're thinking about it. Tell me what that's all about. It's really
Yeah, I
exciting.
mean that's like how to win friends and influence. I mean, that was like the biggest thing I took out of that book is ask questions.
Yeah. So
But yeah,
notice that I didn't say anything about myself.
yeah,
I labeled what you were feeling, and I said, "Tell me more." When my wife and I go to social gatherings, we're not huge social butterflies because we live out in the middle of nowhere. But when we go, we always compare notes at the end of the evening. How many people asked you who you were? Nobody. Who asked you who you were? Nobody. Because all we're doing is listening and validating other people. And when we do this, you do it successful. People will never ask who you are. They'll come away with a great feeling about, wow, that guy Doug Noll is a pretty super nice guy.
yeah,
But if you ask them, well, what did you learn about him? Nothing. Oh, I didn't learn anything really about him.
yeah.
It's because we're
It
spending
made me
our
feel
time.
good. Yeah,
Yeah, it made me feel good.
yeah, I love that. Very
And for
cool.
people who are in the dating scene, heaven forbid, I'm way past that. But
Yeah,
it's so interesting. I've got a young friend of mine. He's 25, 26 years old, lives in New Jersey. I was on his podcast a year or two ago, 2, 3, maybe 3 years, and we hit up a friendship. And he's out of college and he's dating in New Jersey and New York and all that. And I was just amazed to hear that the way that young people communicate is by texting now or voice messaging I just shake my head. I said, what is going on here? I said, dude, you got to ask a girl out for coffee and start listening to her. You can't do this over the phone. It won't work.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. You know, that actually segues into my next question for you. So much of this divide and this kind of angst in the country that we see is like happens online, right? On Facebook or Instagram posts, people like battling it out in the comment section, like things that they would never say to someone's face, I hope.
Right. No consequences. So they can do whatever they want.
Yeah. And I mean, and then, you know, we've also heard like half of those are bots, right? But for the actual people, like I know people that get like fired up by that and they want to engage and
fight back.
You know, or they've been targeted and it's like horrible, right? When they're targeted online like that. So what's your advice for that? Because that's like so relevant.
Epic label them. The studies show that it works.
Even through online.
Absolutely. And there's some amazing studies out there that show that. And I've had that in my own experience. I'm very active on a lot of different channels, and I always get the snarky comments. And I just say, "Oh, you're really frustrated. You don't feel disrespected. You don't feel heard." I never hear from them again.
Yeah, they do, so they don't respond.
No, they disappear because they can only engage with anger. But if you don't show any anger or defensiveness, they're trying to get you to trigger. They're trying to get you to get defensive. But if you don't trigger, don't get defensive, don't fight back, and just say, "Oh, you're really angry right now. You're pissed off. You feel frustrated. You don't feel heard." What can they do with that?
Yeah, I'm going to start doing that. Why do people do that? Why are they trying to trigger people? Why do they want that reaction?
They get a dopamine release. It's addictive. So? Oh, sure. They get a dopamine release out of getting rises out of people, and it makes them, for a moment, it makes them feel big and powerful because they were able to bully somebody online, and there are no consequences to it, really. Yeah. So you can get away with stuff that if you did it in person, you would never get away with it in person.
Yeah.
But online, you can get away with it because you're anonymous, you're using pseudonyms, right? And you can be as outrageous as you want to be, and nobody's ever going to hold you accountable for it. There's just no accountability online. And
that's so heartbreaking.
I was going to say the algorithms, the algorithms they amplify the rudeness and the outrageous and the anger, because that's what brings eyeballs to the screen.
Yeah.
I mean, Facebook just lost a lawsuit around all of that.
Right. I heard about that. Yeah, it's so heartbreaking because that's a human on the other side, and you have a choice that you can leave people feeling good or leave people feeling bad, right? Every single interaction.
That's right.
Yeah.
And there are a lot, young people, they grew up with technology, they grew up with phones, they have never learned how to sit and interact with each other. They're afraid to sit down and have a conversation. Like my buddy Nick, he's afraid. He was afraid of sitting down and having a conversation with a girl. She was afraid too. That's why they kept everything at distance. I said, "No, take her out for coffee. Sit down, and here's how you're going to do the conversation."
Yeah.
And I scripted it for him, and then we met a couple of weeks later, and I said, "Well, how'd it go?" He said, "It was amazing."
It's incredible when you actually talk to a person.
Yeah.
It's so so I'm 40, and I think my generation was the last one to grow up analog. I think the internet kind of happened when I was in like 7th grade or something. But it's so true. I think about like raising kids now and with AI. And okay, well, here's another thing. I don't know if you'll shake your head at this and be like, "This is just ridiculous," but a lot of times I'll use ChatGPT for this very thing. Like if I'm like stressed at someone, like my mother knows how to press my buttons kind of thing, I'll write out the text and then I'll be like, "How to win friends and influence this for me, ChatGPT," and it'll like come back. But now I'm gonna use your
all the platforms know me. So I want you to go back, review the work of Doug Noll, and I've got the situation. How would if you were Doug Noll, how would you respond? And you'll get the response. Remember,
you should create an app.
That AI, well, there are apps that have been created.
A Doug Noll app.
Yeah. But we got to remember what AI is. It is not artificial intelligence. It's a large language machine that's probabilistic, and you give it basically the outline of what you want, and it will give you the most probable result within your prompt. So if you say, "How would Doug Noll respond to this?" and you set up the situation, it will go search out for my material, which is a lot, and it will come back and give you the most probable response that I might give based on all of the information that it can gather about my work. And that's all it is.
Yeah.
It's not thinking.
Yeah.
It's not engaging in reasoning. It's not engaging in any kind of thought process that a human being engages in. It's just doing probabilistic analysis. And that's and we have to always remember that.
Yeah. Well,
it looked real, and believe me, don't get me wrong. I use Claude every single day. I use ChatGPT. I use them all, and they're phenomenal how good they are. But you always have to remember in the back of your head, this is not intelligence. This is something different. It looks like intelligence, but it's not.
You know what's interesting too is that it speaks to people the way that you would speak to people,
that's
like right. You, Doug Noll, like it.
That's right.
It
trained.
Makes you feel good.
Trained to sycophancy. It's trained sycophancy to make you to always make always be friendly and say what you want to hear sometimes, unless you're really careful in your prompts. That's
Lift
why
you
there's
up.
so much AI slop. And that's why I say the most important degree in the next 20 years is not going to be a degree in tech or STEM. It's going to be in liberal arts. The liberal arts degree where you really have learned how to be a critical thinker.
Yeah.
Those are the people who are going to be really valuable.
Yeah. There's these schools that I'm like seriously considering. The problem is they're part AI taught, but it's 3 hours of actual education. And then the rest of the day is spent learning grit and resilience, learning public speaking, learning entrepreneurship.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, man, part of me really wants to put my kids through those.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I'm like,
the
I don't know if
skills,
they would
the skills that
miss
are
out
not
on.
going to get replaced by AI.
Yeah. Because you have to, I mean, parents right now have to think like what the future is going to look like
That's
in
right.
10, 15, 20 years.
That's right.
I mean, it's most college degrees might not be important anymore unless you're going to be a lawyer or a doctor or something, right?
Liberal arts, because you learn how to think. The one thing that AI will not do is it will not substitute for good critical thinking.
Yeah.
Because AI does not do critical thinking.
Yeah, and speaking skills, right?
That's
like
right.
your friend.
That's right.
Yeah, learning to speak to people.
That's right.
Yeah. I feel like I could talk to you forever, and I have so many more questions, but I know you have a
I
deadline.
can always come back.
Well, I just appreciate you so much. I learned a
Thanks,
lot.
Chris.
I'm sure listeners did as well. And the work you're doing is phenomenal and so needed. So thank you for all of that.
Absolutely.
I'm sure people want to know where they can get in touch with you or buy your books or whatever it is you want to take a moment to share.
I'm a one-man shop. I live in Central California. I don't have an entourage. You can find me at Doug Noll, N-O-L, there it is right there. DougNoll.com is my website. Email address is doug@dougnoll.com. That's not hard to remember. Empathy Leadership is coming out in September. I'm really looking for people to pre-order because if I can get in the pre-orders that first week of September, I got, you qualify for bestseller status, which means the book can get to a broader audience. And the link for that is dougnoll.com/books/empathy-leadership. So pre-order the book. On that website also are all my other books, so that are all available in all the usual places. And the other book that would be of most interest to people, of course, is De-Escalate. And you can get that, again, there are links on the website for getting that. And for those who are interested in doing the deeper dive, I've got a Substack, dougnoll.com, dougnoll.substack.com. And there I write, unlike other social medias, Substack is designed for doing longer thought pieces. So if you go to my Substack, you'll find me a lot of what my current thinking is and what I'm writing about. So that's the deep stuff there. And you can find me on social media anywhere. So
amazing. I'll make sure all those links are in the show notes as well. So
great.
If you're driving, listening to this, don't try and write it down. Just come back.
Please.
Well, thank you so much. Again, I really appreciate all the work you're doing, and it was such a pleasure to have you on.
Thanks.
And if you're listening, send this to someone might resonate with it. I think you should send it to everyone because everyone needs this right now. And like, comment, share, subscribe. So again, we can keep pushing it out to people. Have a beautiful rest of your day, everyone.